so Digital Gnosis had a question. Dr. Habermas, will you apologize for saying that we had a first century Mark manuscript when it was a forgery obtained by destroying mummy masks or something like that?
If the point of apology is to say I was wrong, yes, I will say I'm wrong. But let me just tell you, I am not a manuscript expert. I was told that by a person who was there. Anybody can disbelieve this, and I will say I'm sorry for giving wrong data, but here's why I did. It was somebody else's data, and I said that. The guy who told me was present with the individual who's the scholar, and he was told by the scholar on his word. That's what it is. It's his word. And this guy's a manuscript scholar too, the one who told me. He says that the fellow thought it was a late first century manuscript. If the comment was wrong, yes, I apologize for saying it. But I want it to be known I was repeating a manuscript scholar who said he was told by the manuscript scholar it was late first century. I'm reporting somebody else's words. So that guy who told me would be mistaken too if this isn't first century. But given that I'm wrong and I'm not a manuscript scholar, yes, I shouldn't have said it, I suppose. No, not I suppose. I shouldn't have said it until I had better evidence. I thought pretty good evidence was a guy who was there who was himself a specialist. But yes, I'll apologize for misleading anybody I misled. Yes.
Okay, so sending questions if you want, but we don't have much time. So, does Dr. Habermas think that his desire to believe it was true led him to accept the first century Mark manuscript on insufficient evidence, or no?
Let me read this. Do I think that my desire to believe was true, that led me to accept the first century Mark? Oh, well, let's put it this way. I'm fully willing to say I hoped it was true. And when I heard from a well-known manuscript expert that it was true. By the way, I heard from more than one. I heard from two different ones. When I heard, yeah, I'd have to admit that something it'd be like this. Would I be excited if I heard that? I haven't heard the word yet, but I heard hearsay that my son got an A on a very hard exam. Yeah, I got to say that I would just be overjoyed, and I would go, that's wonderful. So yeah, and maybe I can phrase the question this way. Did my zeal take over a little bit there? Yeah, that could be. I'll apologize for reporting a fact that was reported incorrectly to me, but still, I'll apologize for reporting an incorrect fact,
No.
and maybe being a little too excited about that. Yeah, that's fine.
So, two questions I'm going to ask you together.
By the way, Josh, what I'm saying is fine is just so nobody doesn't hear me the right way. I'm fine apologizing for it. I'm fine saying, yeah, I was a little too exuberant, probably. Yes, that's fine with that.
All right, so let's do two quickly. So your magnum again, Digital Gnosis, guys. Does Habermas think that a desire to believe something on insufficient evidence could have led Jesus' followers to believe he was resurrected?
Do I think that? Okay, so you're asking.
No, it's not me. It's the other guy.
Right. The question there. Do I think that a desire on the part? You know what's interesting about that question, Joshua, is that they didn't believe. Their first response was not to believe. I can give you several examples. They abandoned Jesus in the garden. The men don't show up at the cross. They don't show up at the burial until second stage. They go there to see if the women were telling the truth, but they didn't go to the tomb. When the women come and tell the disciples, not even the resurrection, when the women come and tell the disciples the tomb was empty and the angel said he would appear to us, in Luke 24, the disciples say, come on, ladies, quit spreading, the phrase, idle tales. Quit spreading idle tales. So they dogged the women. They left the garden. They weren't at the cross. They weren't at the burial. And they were hiding. It specifically says in John, they were hiding for fear of the Jews. They didn't come out. When the women did go out, they said, you're wrong. And don't forget, James and Paul are two unbelievers. We had the question earlier today, do people become Christians just for studying resurrection? Well, Paul and James both saw the resurrected Jesus, or at least believe they did, and they both became Christians, and they both died as martyrs. So yeah, I think that's a hard one because the disciples, I'm not saying they didn't want to believe, But when all these things happened, they ran away. They were fearful. They hid, and they didn't believe the women when they boldly went to the tomb and brought the word back. The guys didn't believe them. So,
I see.
The disciples a lot of times didn't believe
Okay, so
what the letters meant.
wait, this is a question about from again digital gnosis. Has Gary read Leon Festinger's work on
Yes,
prophecy? You have, and
yes, I'm very familiar with it.
does he think it could be applied to the resurrection? That is, Jesus as a failed apocalyptic prophet.
No, it doesn't, because what Fessinger is applying it to would be like the Jehovah's Witness, the Seventh Day Adventists who go out on the mountain because someone predicted that Jesus was coming. I think it was 1844 or thereabouts, and they sold everything and they went out on the mountain and he didn't appear. And what Fessinger's theory is, they reinterpreted it and said, "Oh, maybe he's coming in another year," and he still didn't come. Jehovah's Witnesses do the same thing. They have two dates at least two for when Jesus appeared, never came, and they reinterpret their religion. That's Fessinger. I would say no, because this is not. It's not even close as an analogy. They said someone has a prophecy and they go out to wait for Jesus. He doesn't come. The point with the Gospels always is that Jesus showed himself face to face to many times groups of people, individuals. That's about another reason why Paul's not citing the Old Testament. The list that he gives in 1 Corinthians 15 does not include a single Old Testament source, and there's 5 of them. So, in other words, Jesus is appearing face to face and showing himself. That's not the same as somebody going, "I think he's going to come back next year," and he doesn't come back, and we're all heartbroken because he didn't come when you predicted he would come back, not Jesus, you. And it's just not close. And I think if they reinterpreted their religion and kept on believing in it, in spite of the going out in the mountain and Jesus is not there, if they were, I'll bet you a bunch of people would fall away too. We don't study that. We talk about the ones who stayed, and that supports Messenger, but not all of them did.
All right, let's do a couple of more in depth. Okay, digital gnosis ones. The expectations was for Jesus to bring a political kingdom, and he died on a cross. Would Festinger's cognitive dissonance theory apply?
I don't think would apply to that, because not to the resurrection, because first, I don't think his kingdom was political. In fact, when Jesus claimed from the get-go, Mark chapter 1, Jesus came immediately, it says, proclaiming the kingdom of God, and he said, "It's here with you." In fact, if critics today believe Jesus healed, and if critics today believe whatever the definition of exorcism is, Jesus was doing it, one of Jesus' sayings is, "If I by the finger of God cast out demons, then know that the kingdom has come among you." So it started when he started preaching. But I don't think it was political. I don't think Jesus had hardly a political bone in his body. I don't mean he never said anything political, but I don't think it's a political kingdom. What was the rest of that question? The rest of what I was going to say was it still wouldn't affect the resurrection, because it wouldn't affect the cross. If you're dead, you're dead, no matter what your views are. If you're dead, you're dead. And cognitive dissonance wouldn't apply, because if he's on the cross and he's on the cross and he's dead, no matter what the cognitive dissonance is. And secondly, if he really appeared to people, that's just not cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance happens when people fill in the blanks with what they want to believe when what they originally wanted to believe was not true. So you'd have to get the death and resurrection not true before you get they really wanted to believe it. And people like Dale Allison, I give you a long list. People like Dale Allison, Pincus Lapide, a number of people who are not believers say that I can't speak for Dale, but Pincus Lapide is not a believer, was not a believer. He's passed away, but he's a Jewish New Testament specialist, and he says Jesus was raised from the dead. So we have those cases.
Gnosis wants to ask, is Gary aware that he himself has added details to the NDE report he tells about the woman seeing digits on a machine that weren't in the original source?
Well, I would like to know what that is, because I helped do research on that one and got the report both published and firsthand from the person. So if somebody has other details, I'd like to know who's spreading them and where this comes from. See, I'm going to want to know the exact same questions. I want to know what are the data, who is spreading it, what is their background, and what is their evidence that the story is different from what was recorded. Because like I said, in that case, the person themselves was interviewed, an eyewitness, and the story has been written up in a reputable source.
Josh, that'll be there. Okay, so I don't want to miss any. Okay, so I think Digital Gnosis had another question. Why do we need? So if in NDEs disembodied souls can see without the need for eyes, then why do we have eyes? I guess supposed to be a funny question.
Well, because we are composite beings. The classical answer, even for non-Christians who take a dualistic answer, is that we are made up of an immaterial and a material substance. That's just who we are. And the immaterial works through the material. And the point about NDEs is that there are dozens of cases, literally dozens of cases. I have a source with 30 of them in it. There are dozens of cases where a person has no measurable heartbeat, no measurable brain waves, and they record data that happened at the same time a distance away that can be verified and is verified. Now, if my brain's not working, if my heart's not working, and I can report data, that starts looking like my thesis, not like the no afterlife thesis.
Yeah, I just sent the video to you.